A single father's carefully ordered life shatters when a blind date introduces him to a woman running from her past, forcing both to decide if love is worth the risk of losing everything they've worked to protect. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. Ethan Cross stood in the parking lot of the Riverside Cafe with his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, wondering what cosmic joke had brought him here. The October wind cut through the fabric, sharp and unforgiving, much like his mood. He'd built a life that didn't include surprises, didn't leave room for variables he couldn't control. And yet here he was, about to walk into a blind date he'd agreed to only because Marcus wouldn't shut up about it. "You're 32, not dead," Marcus had said last week, sprawled across Ethan's couch while his daughter Lily colored at the coffee table. "When's the last time you did something that wasn't work or parent-teacher conferences?" Ethan hadn't answered because they both knew the truth. His life was carpentry jobs, school pickups, bedtime stories, and the occasional beer with friends who were slowly starting to forget what he looked like. It was enough. It had to be. The cafe door opened, releasing a burst of warmth and the smell of coffee. A couple walked out, laughing about something, their hands intertwined. Ethan looked away. That wasn't his world anymore. Maybe it never had been. His phone buzzed. Marcus. "She's inside. Corner booth, dark hair. Don't be weird." Ethan. "I'm leaving." Marcus. "I told her you're sometimes an asshole, but you're a good guy. Don't make me a liar." Ethan exhaled hard enough to see his breath. He could get back in his truck, drive the 20 minutes home, help Lily with her homework, and pretend this never happened. It would be easier, safer. Instead, he pulled open the door. The cafe was crowded for a Thursday afternoon. Remote workers hunched over laptops, retirees nursing endless coffee refills, a teenage couple sharing headphones in the corner. Ethan scanned the room, his carpenter's eye automatically cataloging the worn floorboards that needed replacing, the uneven table near the window. Then he saw her. She sat in the corner booth, exactly where Marcus said she'd be. Dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, fingers wrapped around a mug, eyes on the window like she was memorizing the parking lot. She wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, nothing fancy, but there was something about the way she held herself, straight-backed, alert, that made him pause. She turned, and their eyes met. For a second, neither of them moved. Then she raised her mug slightly, a question in the gesture. Ethan crossed the cafe, weaving between tables, acutely aware that he was still wearing his work clothes, that there was probably sawdust in his hair. "Ethan." Her voice was lower than he expected, with a slight rasp that suggested either too much coffee or not enough sleep. "That's me." He slid into the booth across from her, the vinyl squeaking under his weight. "You're Ava." "I am." She set down her mug. "Marcus said you almost didn't come." "Marcus talks too much." He said that too. A small smile. "Also that you build things and have a daughter and are emotionally unavailable but working on it." Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. "I'm going to kill him." "Don't. I appreciate honesty." She leaned back, studying him with an openness that was somehow both disarming and unnerving. "For what it's worth, I also didn't want to be here." "Great, we're off to a fantastic start. Isn't that better than pretending?" Ava's eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they didn't waver from his face. "We can sit here for 30 minutes, make small talk about the weather and our jobs, then go home and tell our friends we tried. Or we can be honest about the fact that blind dates are usually disasters and see what happens." A waitress appeared, pad in hand. "What can I get you?" "Coffee, black." Ethan hadn't planned to order anything, but apparently his mouth had other ideas. "Same," Ava said. "And maybe some of those cheese fries, if you're hungry?" She directed the last part at Ethan. "Sure." He wasn't hungry. He was never hungry when he was anxious. But saying no seemed rude. The waitress left. Silence settled over the table, but it wasn't as uncomfortable as Ethan expected. Ava didn't rush to fill it with nervous chatter. She just waited, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "So," Ethan said finally, "Marcus didn't tell me much, just that you're a friend of Sarah's and you're new to the area." "Friend might be generous." We were college roommates who stayed in touch via Christmas cards and the occasional text. Ava's smile was self-deprecating. But yes, I moved here about 2 months ago. Needed a change. From where? Boston. She said it like she was closing a door. You've lived here your whole life? Most of it. Grew up in Denver, moved here after. He stopped, the automatic edit kicking in. After his ex-wife decided single motherhood looked better on someone else. After the lawyers and the custody battle and the slow, grinding work of building a life from the wreckage. After my daughter was born. How old is she? 7, Lily. Saying her name made something in his chest ease slightly. She's in 2nd grade, loves dinosaurs and hates broccoli and thinks every tree is personally offended if you don't climb it. Ava's expression shifted, genuine warmth breaking through her careful composure. She sounds wonderful. She is. Ethan meant it. She's everything. The coffee arrived, along with a mountain of cheese fries that looked like they violated several health codes. Ava immediately grabbed one, apparently unconcerned about burning her fingers. So, carpentry, she said around the fry. You build houses? Furniture mostly, custom pieces. Sometimes I'll do renovation work if the job's interesting. He picked up a fry, more to have something to do with his hands than because he wanted it. What about you? Freelance graphic design. Logos, websites, brand identity, that kind of thing. She shrugged. It pays the bills and lets me work from anywhere, which was the goal. Running from something? The words came out before Ethan could stop them. Too direct, too probing. He expected her to deflect, to change the subject with the skill of someone practiced at keeping people at arm's length. Instead, Ava met his eyes. Maybe. You? Not running, just standing still. Sometimes that's harder. Yeah. Ethan found himself reaching for another fry. It is. They fell into conversation after that, the kind that meandered without purpose. Favorite books neither of them had time to read. The best hiking trails around Colorado Springs, whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Ava was firmly pro, Ethan staunchly against. Small things, surface things, but underneath there was something else. A current of recognition, as if they were both reading the same unspoken language. An hour passed, then another. The cafe began to empty out, the late afternoon crowd replaced by early dinner customers. Ethan's phone buzzed twice. Marcus, no doubt checking if he'd fled, but he ignored it. Can I ask you something? Ava said, scraping the last of the cheese from the fry basket. And you can tell me it's none of my business. Go ahead. Why did you really come today? Not the Marcus wouldn't shut up a reason, the real one. Ethan considered lying. It would be easier, cleaner, but something about the way Ava looked at him, not judging, just waiting, made him want to tell the truth. Because I'm tired, he said slowly, of going through the motions, of making sure everything is perfect for Lily while I just exist around the edges of my own life. He paused. That probably sounds dramatic. No, Ava's voice was quiet. It sounds familiar. Why did you come? She was silent for a long moment, her eyes on the table. When she looked up, there was something raw in her expression, quickly shuddered, but there nonetheless. Because I wanted to see if I could still do this. Normal things, coffee dates and small talk, without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Has it dropped? Not yet. A ghost of a smile. But the day's not over. Ethan found himself smiling back. Optimist. Realist. Ava checked her phone, and he saw genuine surprise cross her face. It's almost 6. I thought we'd been here maybe an hour. Time flies when you're dreading every second. She laughed. A real laugh, not the polite sound people made during awkward first dates. That was terrible. I'm out of practice. At what? Making terrible jokes or going on dates? Both. The waitress returned with the check. Ethan reached for it automatically, but Ava was faster. We split it, she said, pulling out her wallet before he could argue. That was the deal, remember? Honesty. No games. I don't remember agreeing to that deal. Too late. You're stuck with it now. She counted out bills with the efficiency of someone who'd worked service jobs. Besides, I ate most of those fries. They were for both of us. And yet, she slid her half across the table. There you go. Your moral conscience can rest easy. They stood, gathering coats and phones, the small ritual of departure. Outside, the temperature had dropped with the sun, and Ethan's breath fogged in the parking lot lights. My truck's over there. He pointed to the battered Ford at the edge of the lot. You? That Honda. Ava gestured in the opposite direction, the one that looks like it's held together by prayer and duct tape. Reliable combination. Hasn't failed me yet. She hesitated, hands in her pockets. This was not terrible. High praise. I'm serious. Ava tilted her head, studying him with that same unguarded intensity. I didn't expect to actually enjoy myself. Neither did I. Ethan surprised himself by meaning it. So what happens now? Now we both go home. Marcus and Sarah get smug, and we pretend we're thinking about whether we want to do this again. Ava's smile was crooked. Even though we both already know the answer, do we? Don't we? Ethan should say something non-committal, should keep his cards close, protect the carefully constructed routine that kept his life stable, should remember all the reasons why letting someone new into his world was complicated and messy and potentially devastating. Instead, he said, Saturday, there's a farmer's market downtown. Lily loves it. We usually go around 10, get hot cider, look at the crafts. It's not fancy. I don't like fancy. Then maybe you'd want to come with us. Meet her. No pressure, just if you're interested. Ava didn't answer immediately. In the silence, Ethan felt the weight of what he'd just offered. Not just his time, but access to the person who mattered most. It was too soon, too fast, and he was already regretting the words. Then Ava nodded. Okay. Okay. I'll be there. 10 o'clock. Downtown Farmers Market. She pulled her keys from her pocket. Fair warning, though, I'm terrible at haggling with vendors. Lily will teach you. She's got a whole strategy involving strategic cuteness and dinosaur facts. I like her already. Ava started toward her car, then turned back. Ethan? Yeah? Thanks for not pretending. She was in her Honda before he could respond, backing out of the space with the jerky movements of someone whose mind was elsewhere. Ethan watched her taillights disappear down the street, then stood in the parking lot for another minute, trying to figure out what exactly had just happened. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Still alive? Ethan. Barely. Marcus. That bad? Ethan looked at the cafe, still glowing warm against the darkening sky. He thought about Ava's laugh, the way she didn't flinch from difficult questions, how she'd eaten cheese fries with the unself-conscious joy of someone who wasn't performing for anyone. Ethan. Saturday. Farmers Market. Don't be weird about it. Marcus. Too late. I'm already weird about it. Marcus. Sarah's going to lose her mind. Marcus. Please tell me you didn't screw this up. Ethan pocketed his phone without answering and climbed into his truck. The engine turned over with a familiar rumble, and he pulled out onto the main road, heading toward the house where Lily was probably driving his mother crazy with questions about where he'd been. He should be thinking about the Saturday market logistics, whether to warn Lily beforehand or just let her meet Ava naturally, how to frame it so it didn't feel like a big deal even though it absolutely was. Instead, he kept replaying the conversation, the moments where Ava's careful composure had slipped to reveal something more complicated underneath. Running from something, he'd said, and she hadn't denied it. The question was whether he was ready to deal with whatever she was running from, whether opening that door was worth the risk of disrupting the life he'd worked so hard to build. He didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time in years, he wanted to find out. The house was a small ranch-style place about 15 minutes outside town, set back from the road, with enough land that Lily could run herself ragged without bothering neighbors. Ethan had bought it for cheap 6 years ago, when the market crashed and he was desperate for stability, and spent every spare hour since then fixing what the previous owners had destroyed through neglect. Now the porch didn't sag, the windows actually closed, and the roof only leaked in one spot during heavy rain. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Lights blazed from every window. Ethan pulled into the gravel driveway and killed the engine, bracing himself. The front door flew open before he reached the porch. "Dad!" Lily barreled into him with the force of a small, enthusiastic missile. "You're late!" Grandma made spaghetti and I had 2 helpings and we watched the dinosaur documentary and the T-Rex was so cool, but also scientifically, they probably had feathers. Which is weird because how do feathers make you scary? Ethan caught her mid-leap, lifting her up despite his protesting back. At 7, she was all elbows and knees and endless energy. Her dark hair, the same color as her mother's, though he tried not to think about that, was escaping from its braid, and there was red sauce on her shirt. "Feathers can be scary," he said, carrying her inside. "Cassowaries have feathers, and they can literally disembowel you." "What's disembowel? Ask Grandma." His mother appeared in the kitchen doorway, wiping her hands on a towel. Ellen Cross was 63 and showed no signs of slowing down, despite her constant claims that raising Lily in her golden years was going to kill her. She'd moved to Colorado Springs 2 years ago, ostensibly for the weather, but Ethan knew it was to be closer to them. "You're cheerful," she observed, taking in whatever expression was on his face. "The date went well?" "It was fine." Ethan set Lily down, ignoring her immediate return to monologuing about dinosaurs. "Thanks for watching her." "That's not an answer." Ellen moved into the living room, settling into the armchair that had become unofficially hers. "But I'll take it. So are you seeing her again?" "Mom, it's a simple question." "Saturday," Lily announced, because apparently the dinosaur documentary hadn't exhausted her eavesdropping skills. "Dad has plans Saturday morning." "Do I?" Ethan looked at her. "How do you know that?" "You never have plans on Saturday morning, so if you're hiding it, it must be important." She grinned, showing the gap where she'd lost a tooth last week. "Is it a secret?" "No." "Yes, maybe." Ethan wasn't sure how to categorize something that felt significant but shouldn't be. "There's a woman I met today. Her name's Ava. She might come to the farmer's market with us." The room went very quiet. Ellen's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline. Lily's mouth formed a small O of surprise. "A woman," his mother said slowly, "coming to the market with you and Lily." "That's what I said." "You haven't brought a woman around Lily since—" "I know." Ethan cut her off before she could finish. They all knew the history, no point rehashing it. "It's not a big deal, just someone I met through Marcus and Sarah. Thought it would be nice to have company." Lily tilted her head, considering this information with the seriousness of a judge reviewing evidence. "Is she nice?" "I think so." "Does she like dinosaurs?" "I don't know. You can ask her." "Okay." Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. "Can I stay up until 8:30? It's Thursday." "But I finished my homework and I ate vegetables." "You had 2 helpings of spaghetti. There were like 3 pieces of zucchini in the sauce." "That still counts." Lily launched into an elaborate argument involving nutrition and fairness and the fact that some of her friends got to stay up until 9 on school nights. Ethan let the familiar rhythm of negotiation wash over him, grateful for the return to normal. His mother caught his eye over Lily's head. She didn't say anything, but her expression was clear. "We're talking about this later." 8:15, Ethan said finally, "and only if you brush your teeth properly." "I'm inspecting." "Deal." Lily raced upstairs, her feet thundering on the old wood. Ellen waited until her door closed. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" "Nothing's going on. I went on a date. It went okay. We're getting coffee again." "At the farmer's market? With your daughter?" "Yes." "Ethan." His mother's voice softened. "I'm not saying don't do this. I think it's wonderful you're trying, but bringing someone around Lily this quickly, are you sure?" "No." The honesty surprised him. "I'm not sure about any of it, but I said it before I could think better of it, and I'm not backing out now." "What if it doesn't work out?" "Then it doesn't work out. Lily's tough. She'll be fine." "I'm not just worried about Lily." Ethan met his mother's eyes. She'd been there through all of it, the divorce, the custody battle, the first year when he'd barely held it together. She'd seen him at his worst and never once suggested he couldn't handle being a single father, but she'd also seen how hard he'd worked to build walls high enough to keep that kind of pain from happening again. "I know," he said quietly, "but I can't keep living like this, going through the motions. Lily deserves better than a dad who's just present." You're more than present, you're devoted. Devoted to keeping everything the same. That's not the same as actually living. Ellen was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, gathering her purse and keys. Well, I suppose Saturday will be interesting. That's one word for it. She paused at the door. For what it's worth. I'm glad you're trying, even if it scares you. Who says I'm scared? Ellen just smiled and let herself out. Alone in the living room, Ethan listened to Lily moving around upstairs, the old house creaking and settling around him. Through the window, he could see the workshop he'd built in the backyard, a simple structure where he spent his evenings turning raw wood into something useful, something beautiful. He thought about Ava's question, "Why did you really come today?" The truth was more complicated than he'd admitted. He'd come because Marcus was relentless, yes, but also because there was a moment, about 3 weeks ago, when Lily had asked him if he was lonely. She'd said it casually, the way kids do, while they were building a blanket fort. And Ethan had said no, of course not. He had her. But the question had stuck with him, burrowing under his skin. Because the truth was, he was lonely. He'd just gotten so good at ignoring it that he'd convinced himself it didn't matter. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't open it. Unknown. This is Ava. Got your number from Sarah. Hope that's not weird. Unknown. Just wanted to say thanks again for today, and I'm looking forward to Saturday. Unknown. Also, Marcus texted Sarah, who texted me saying you looked happy but confused, which seems like an accurate summary of blind dates in general. Ethan smiled despite himself. He saved her number, then typed out a response. Ethan. Not weird, and yeah, that's about right. Ethan. Fair warning, Lily's going to ask you about dinosaurs within 30 seconds of meeting you. She's very serious about paleontology. Ava. Lucky for her, I know exactly 3 dinosaur facts. Should last about 45 seconds. Ava. After that, I'm counting on the farmers to carry the conversation. Ethan. They're not much for conversation, but the cider's good. Ava. Sold. Ava. See you Saturday, Ethan. He stared at the screen for a moment, then set the phone down and headed upstairs to check on Lily. She was in her pajamas, supposedly brushing her teeth, but when he stuck his head in the bathroom, she was actually examining her reflection and making faces. Very thorough, he observed. I'm practicing looking surprised. For when I meet Ava. She demonstrated, eyes wide, mouth open. Like this. So she knows I'm excited. I think just being yourself is fine. But what if she doesn't like me? The question stopped Ethan cold. He crouched down next to her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Lily, anyone who doesn't like you is missing out on the best person I know. And if Ava doesn't see that, then we won't see her again. Simple as that. But you like her. I barely know her. But you want to know her. Lily turned to face him, suddenly serious in that way that made her seem much older than 7. I can tell. You smile different. I smile different? Yeah, like you forgot you were supposed to be grumpy. Ethan pulled her into a hug, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. When did you get so smart? I was born this way. She squeezed him back, then pulled away. Can I wear my dinosaur shirt on Saturday? You can wear whatever you want. Even my rain boots? It's not supposed to rain. But they have T-Rexes on them. Then definitely the rain boots. Ethan stood, his knees protesting. Now actually brush your teeth. I'm setting a timer. Lily giggled and grabbed her toothbrush. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching her scrub with theatrical vigor, and wondered what the hell he was doing. Introducing someone to Lily was a line he'd never crossed. In 7 years, there'd been exactly 0 women who'd made it past the first date, let alone into his daughter's life. It was safer that way, simpler. But standing in the parking lot tonight, watching Ava drive away, he'd felt something shift. A door opening that he'd kept locked for so long he'd almost forgotten it existed. Maybe it was reckless. Maybe it would blow up in his face. Maybe in a week or a month or 6 months he'd be explaining to Lily why Ava wasn't around anymore, watching his daughter's heart break because he'd been selfish enough to want something for himself. Or maybe, just maybe, it would be different this time. Dad? Lily's voice pulled him back. She was rinsing her mouth, pink toothpaste foam dripping down the sink. "Are you nervous?" "About what?" "Saturday." Ethan considered lying, but Lily had inherited his bullshit detector, sharpened it to a fine point through years of practice. "Yeah," he admitted. "A little. Me too." She wiped her mouth on the towel. "But the good kind of nervous, like before my birthday party." "The good kind of nervous," Ethan repeated. "I like that." They went through the bedtime routine, story, water, checking under the bed for monsters. None tonight, thankfully. One more hug. By the time Ethan closed her door, it was past 8:30, but he didn't have the heart to call her on it. Downstairs, the house felt too quiet. He could turn on the TV, find something mindless to watch, or head to the workshop, lose himself in the meditation of sanding and shaping. Both options felt hollow. Instead, he pulled out his phone and looked at Ava's messages again. 3 texts, casual and easy, but underneath them was the same current he'd felt in the cafe. The sense that they were both trying to figure out if this was real or just another false start. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. There were 1,000 things he could say, questions he wanted to ask. What was she running from? What did she see when she looked at him? Was she scared too? In the end, he just typed, "Ethan." Looking forward to it too. Simple, honest, enough. He set the phone down and walked to the window, looking out at the workshop silhouetted against the night sky. Tomorrow he had a console table to finish for a client in town, then Lily's soccer practice in the evening. Friday was inventory and order supplies. Saturday was the market. The same routine he'd followed for years, with one small addition. One variable that could change everything. Ethan stood there until the cold from the window seeped through his shirt, thinking about fate and choice and whether there was any real difference between the two. Then he locked up, turned off the lights, and headed to bed. Saturday was 2 days away. He'd figure out the rest when he got there. Saturday arrived with the kind of crystalline autumn morning that made Colorado worth the winters. Ethan woke before his alarm, which never happened, and lay in bed listening to the house settle and creak around him. His mind was already running through scenarios. What if Lily didn't like Ava? What if Ava took one look at his chaotic life and realized she'd made a mistake? What if he'd built this up into something it wasn't? He forced himself out of bed at 6:30, made coffee strong enough to strip paint, and tried to focus on the normal Saturday routine. But his hands were unsteady as he cracked eggs into the pan, and he burned the toast twice before giving up and switching to cereal. "You're being weird," Lily announced from the doorway. She was already dressed in her dinosaur shirt and the T-Rex rain boots, her hair a spectacular mess that would take 10 minutes to untangle. "I'm not being weird. You burn the toast. You never burn the toast." She climbed onto the counter stool, watching him with those dark eyes that missed nothing. "It's okay to be nervous, Dad. I read in a book that anxiety is a normal human response to uncertain social situations." "What book are you reading?" "Grandma's." Lily reached for the cereal box, the one on her nightstand about managing stress. "It's actually pretty interesting." Ethan poured milk over her cereal, wondering when his 7-year-old had become the emotionally intelligent one in the family. "You ready for today?" "I've been ready since Thursday." She shoveled cereal into her mouth with the efficiency of someone on a mission. "I made a list of dinosaur facts. Do you want to hear them?" "Hit me." "Okay, so, fact 1. The Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut, but a body the size of a car. Which means being smart isn't about size. It's about what you do with it." She held up one finger. Fact 2. Velociraptors were actually only about the size of a turkey, not like in the movies. Fact 3. Some dinosaurs had feathers and could probably see in color, which means they were basically giant chickens but scarier. Those are good facts. "I know." Lily grinned, milk dribbling down her chin. "If Ava doesn't like them, we'll know she's not cool." "That's not how this works." "Sure it is. Dinosaurs are a great personality test." Ethan couldn't argue with that logic. He drank his coffee and watched his daughter demolize her breakfast, trying to remember the last time he'd felt this particular combination of dread and anticipation. Maybe never. Dating after divorce at 25 had been different. He'd been angrier then, rawer, and the few women he'd gone out with had felt like distractions rather than possibilities. This felt heavier, more real, probably because he was bringing Lily into it. His phone buzzed at 9:15. Ava. Still on for today? No pressure if you changed your mind. Ethan. We're coming. Lily's been ready since Thursday. Ava. Good. I've been sitting in this coffee shop for 20 minutes trying to decide if I'm underdressed or overdressed for a farmer's market. Ethan. It's a farmer's market. There's no dress code. Ava. That's what someone who knows the dress code would say. Ethan. Wear whatever, nobody cares? Ava. Reassuring. See you at 10. Lily appeared at his elbow, having apparently teleported from the bathroom where she'd been attempting to brush her hair. Was that Ava? Yep. What did she say? She's nervous about what to wear. Lily considered this seriously. That means she cares what we think. That's a good sign. She held out the hairbrush. Can you do the braid thing? I tried, but it looks like a bird's nest. Ethan took the brush, and they went through the familiar dance of detangling and braiding while Lily narrated her thoughts on first impressions and the importance of being yourself while also making an effort. He had no idea where she got this stuff, probably the internet, or grandma's self-help books, or the bizarre osmosis that happened when you raised a kid in the modern world. By 9:45, they were in the truck, Lily vibrating with excitement in the passenger seat, chattering about everything and nothing. Ethan gripped the steering wheel and tried to remember how to breathe normally. The farmer's market took over 3 blocks of downtown every Saturday from May through October, a sprawling collection of vendor tents selling everything from organic vegetables to handmade jewelry to dubious essential oils that claimed to cure everything from insomnia to regret. Ethan usually loved it, the noise and color and sense of community, the way Lily could wander semi-supervised while he bought enough produce to pretend they ate healthy. Today it felt overwhelming, every detail sharp and too bright. He parked in the public lot on 5th Street and Lily was out of the truck before he'd even killed the engine. "Slow down!" he called, but she was already halfway across the lot, scanning the crowd with the focus of a tiny hunter. Ethan caught up to her at the entrance to the market, where vendors were still setting up tables and early birds were already picking through the best apples. The smell of cider and cinnamon rolls and fresh bread filled the air, and somewhere a busker was playing guitar with more enthusiasm than skill. "Do you see her?" Lily asked, standing on tiptoe. "Not yet. We're early." "Only by like 5 minutes. That's barely early. That's basically on time." "Since when do you care about being on time?" "Since today." Lily grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the rows of tents. "Come on, let's look at stuff so we seem casual." They wandered past a vegetable stand where a woman was arranging rainbow chard into Instagram-worthy displays, then a booth selling goat cheese that Lily wrinkled her nose at. Ethan kept one eye on the crowd, looking for dark hair and a gray sweater, trying not to seem as anxious as he felt. "Ethan?" He turned. Ava stood about 10 feet away, holding a paper cup of coffee and looking exactly as uncertain as he felt. She was wearing jeans and a blue flannel shirt over a white t-shirt, her hair down this time, falling past her shoulders in waves that looked accidental but probably weren't. She dressed like someone trying not to try too hard, and somehow that made it worse because it meant she'd thought about this as much as he had. "Hey," he managed. "Hey." Ava's eyes flicked to Lily, then back to him. "Sorry, I got here early and didn't know what to do with myself. So I've been drinking coffee and pretending to be interested in heirloom tomatoes. The tomatoes here are actually pretty good." "I'm sure they are." A pause. "I'm Ava." The last part was directed at Lily, who had gone uncharacteristically quiet. She was staring at Ava with the intensity of a scientist observing a new species, taking in every detail. "I'm Lily," she said finally. "That's a pretty name. Ava. It's a palindrome." "It is," Ava agreed, crouching down to Lily's level. "I like your shirt. Is that a velociraptor?" Utahraptor, actually. People always get them confused, but Utahraptors were way bigger and cooler. Lily's reserve cracked slightly. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I don't know a lot about them," Ava admitted, "but I'm willing to learn." "Really? Really?" Lily glanced at Ethan, some silent communication passing between them, then back at Ava. "Okay, I can teach you, but you have to promise to take it seriously. Paleontology is an important science." "I promise." Ava held out her pinky. Pinky swear. Lily hooked her pinky with Ava's, and just like that, something in Ethan's chest loosened. Not all the way. He wasn't naive enough to think one good moment meant anything long-term, but enough that he could breathe a little easier. They started walking, falling into an easy rhythm despite the strangeness of the situation. Lily launched into an explanation of the Mesozoic era, complete with hand gestures and sound effects, while Ava listened with what seemed like genuine interest. Ethan hung back slightly, watching them interact and trying not to overthink every second. At the cider stand, Lily ordered her usual with the confidence of a regular, then turned to Ava. "You have to try the apple cider. It's the best in Colorado. Probably in the whole country, but I haven't tried every state yet, so I can't be completely sure." "High praise," Ava said. "I'll have what she's having." The vendor, a grizzled man named Tom, who'd been running the stand for 15 years, poured 3 cups and slid them across the counter. "New friend, Lily?" "Maybe." Lily took her cider seriously, sipping it like a wine connoisseur. "We're still deciding." "Fair enough." Tom winked at Ethan. "Good to see you, man. Been a while since you brought company." "Thanks, Tom," Ethan said, handing over cash before the conversation could get more embarrassing. They moved on, weaving through the crowd. Ava tried her cider and made a small sound of approval. "Okay, Lily wasn't wrong. This is really good." "Told you," Lily said smugly. "I know things." "Clearly." Ava caught Ethan's eye over Lily's head, and he saw humor there, mixed with something softer. Relief, maybe. Or hope. They stopped at a craft booth where an elderly woman was selling hand-carved wooden animals. Lily immediately gravitated toward a tiny triceratops, turning it over in her hands with reverence. "How much?" she asked the vendor. $12. Lily's face fell. She set the carving down carefully. "I only have $6 saved." "We can get it," Ethan started, but Ava was already pulling out her wallet. "Can I buy it for you?" she asked Lily. "As a thank you for the dinosaur education. I feel like I've learned more in the last 20 minutes than in my entire life." Lily looked at Ethan. He could see the conflict on her face. She'd been raised not to accept expensive gifts from strangers, but a $12 wooden dinosaur probably fell into a gray area. "It's okay," he said. "You can say yes if you want." "Are you sure?" Lily directed the question at Ava. "You don't have to." "I know, but I want to." Ava handed money to the vendor, then passed the triceratops to Lily. "Besides, now you'll have to keep teaching me things. I'm counting on you." Lily clutched the carving like it was made of gold. "Thank you. I'll take really good care of it, and I'll teach you everything I know." She paused. "That might take a while, though. I know a lot." "I've got time," Ava said, and the way she said it, casual but meaning it, made Ethan's throat tight. They wandered further into the market, stopping at a booth selling fresh bread where Ethan bought a loaf for the week. Then at the honey stand where Lily insisted on explaining the importance of bees to the ecosystem. Ava asked questions that weren't condescending, genuinely engaged with the answers, and slowly Ethan started to relax. This was going better than he'd hoped, better than he'd had any right to expect. "Dad," Lily said suddenly, tugging his sleeve, "can I go look at the jewelry booth? Mrs. Patterson from school is working there, and I want to say hi." Ethan looked across the aisle where, sure enough, one of Lily's second-grade teachers was arranging beaded bracelets. "You can see it from here. Don't leave my sight." "I won't." Lily was already moving, leaving him and Ava standing in the middle of foot traffic, suddenly alone. "She's wonderful," Ava said after a moment. "You've done an amazing job with her." "I can't take all the credit. My mom helps. A lot." Ethan shifted his weight, the bag of bread awkward in his hands. "But thank you. She's the best thing that ever happened to me." "I can tell." Ava sipped her cider, watching Lily chat with the teacher. "That thing you said at the cafe, about existing around the edges of your life, I don't think that's true. You're completely present with her. It's obvious." "With her, yeah. Everything else." He trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. "Everything else is harder," Ava finished. "I get it." They stood in companionable silence, watching Lily hold up different bracelets to the light, debating their merits with the teacher. The crowd flowed around them, families and couples and groups of friends, all moving through their own Saturday morning rituals. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said. "Sure." "Why'd you move to Colorado? You said Boston, but you didn't say why you left." Ava's expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. "Needed a change." "That's what you said before, but it's not really an answer." "No," she agreed. "It's not." She was quiet for a long moment, watching Lily. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. "I was engaged. It didn't work out. Boston became complicated, so I left." Ethan processed this. An engagement meant history, meant roots, meant leaving behind more than just a city. "How long were you together?" 4 years, engaged for 6 months. Ava's jaw tightened. "It's not a very interesting story. We wanted different things. He wanted me to be someone I couldn't be. I left before I forgot who I was entirely." "That sounds hard." "It was." She looked at him finally, and her eyes were clear. "But it was also necessary. Some things you can't fix by trying harder. You just have to walk away." "Yeah," Ethan said, thinking about his own divorce, the slow death of something that had maybe never been alive to begin with. "I know what you mean." "Your ex," Ava said carefully. "Lily's mom. Is she—" "Not in the picture. Her choice." The words came out flat, automatic. He'd said them so many times they'd lost their edge. "She decided motherhood wasn't for her about 3 months after Lily was born. Signed over custody, moved to Seattle, sends a birthday card twice a year if we're lucky." Ava winced. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Lily's better off. We both are." He meant it. Whatever anger he'd carried had burned itself out years ago, leaving only a kind of tired acceptance. "It's just been us for a long time. Us and my mom, and that's been enough." "Has it?" The question was gentle, but it landed hard. Ethan looked at Ava, really looked at her, and saw someone who understood the difference between surviving and living, who knew what it cost to build walls high enough to keep yourself safe. "I don't know anymore," he admitted. "I thought it was. But lately you're not sure," Ava finished. "Yeah." Lily came running back, clutching a purple beaded bracelet. "Mrs. Patterson gave me this for free because I helped her set up the table last week. Look, it has little dinosaurs on it." She held it up triumphantly, and Ethan dutifully admired the craftsmanship while his heart rate slowly returned to normal. The moment with Ava had cracked something open, exposed something he wasn't sure he was ready to examine yet. They continued through the market, the conversation shifting back to safer topics: favorite foods, best hiking trails, whether or not pumpkin spice was overrated. Lily appointed herself tour guide, showing Ava her favorite stalls and introducing her to vendors who'd known the Cross family for years. Each introduction came with a story, and Ava listened to all of them, laughing in the right places, asking follow-up questions that showed she was actually paying attention. By 11:30, Lily was starting to drag, her earlier energy depleted by social interaction and sugar from the cinnamon roll Ethan had caved on. They found a bench near the edge of the market and sat, Lily slumping against Ethan's side. "Tired?" he asked. "Little bit." She yawned. "But I had fun. Ava's nice." "I'm glad you think so." "I do." Lily tilted her head to look up at him. "Can she come over sometime? I want to show her my fossil collection." Ethan glanced at Ava, who was studying her coffee cup with sudden fascination. "Maybe, if she wants to." "I'd like that," Ava said quietly. "Really?" Lily perked up. "When? Today? Tomorrow?" "Let's not overwhelm Ava," Ethan said. "She probably has things to do." "Not really." Ava met his eyes. "I mean, I should probably unpack the rest of my apartment at some point, but that's been on my to-do list for 6 weeks and it hasn't happened yet, so—" "You've been here 2 months and you're still not unpacked?" Lily looked scandalized. "That's like really bad at organizing." "Lily," Ethan warned. "Sorry, that's like an interesting life choice?" Ava laughed. "No, you're right. It's bad. I keep telling myself I'll do it this weekend, and then the weekend comes and I find literally anything else to do instead. That's called procrastination, see, Lily informed her. We learned about it in school. It's when you avoid doing something you don't want to do by doing other things instead. Your daughter is very wise, Ava said to Ethan. She gets it from me. Liar, you get it from Grandma. They sat for a while watching the market bustle around them. The morning had warmed up enough that Ethan shrugged out of his jacket, and Lily had abandoned her rain boots in favor of going barefoot on the grass, which was probably against health codes, but he didn't have the energy to fight her on it. So, Ava said eventually, the fossil collection. How extensive are we talking? Very extensive, Lily said seriously. I have 17 different specimens, including a trilobite and part of a megalodon tooth. That's impressive. I know, Dad took me to this dig site last summer where you could search for fossils and I found like 6 in one day. It was the best day of my life. She paused. Well, top 5 anyway. What are the other 4? Ava asked. Lily ticked them off on her fingers. My 7th birthday when Dad made me a dinosaur cake that was so realistic it looked like it might bite you. The time we went to the Natural History Museum in Denver and got to touch a real T-Rex femur. When Grandma taught me how to make chocolate chip cookies, and we ate half the dough before it even got in the oven. And she hesitated. The day my mom left. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Ethan felt his whole body tense, waiting for Lily to explain, dreading whatever she was about to say. I know that sounds bad, Lily continued, her voice matter-of-fact. But it's not. Because that was the day Dad said it was just going to be us, and we were going to be fine, and he was right. We were better than fine. We were good. Ethan couldn't speak, couldn't move. His throat had closed up completely. Ava looked at him, then at Lily. That's a really brave thing to say. It's just true. Lily shrugged, already moving past the moment with the resilience of a kid who'd processed her trauma. Young and come out the other side intact. Anyway, you should definitely come to see the fossils. I can show you how to identify different types of rock formations, too. I have a whole book about it. I would love that, Ava said, her voice thick. They stayed at the market for another 30 minutes, making one more loop through the vendors before heading back to the parking lot. Lily held both their hands as they walked, swinging between them like a bridge, chattering about plans for the afternoon and whether they should get pizza for lunch. At the truck, Ethan loaded their bags into the back while Lily climbed into her seat and immediately started examining her wooden triceratops in the sunlight. Thank you for today, Ava said, standing by the driver's door. This was really nice. Yeah. Ethan found himself not wanting to leave, not wanting to break whatever spell had settled over the morning. So about those fossils. Are you asking me over? I think Lily would never forgive me if I didn't. What about you? Ava's eyes searched his face. What do you want? It was a loaded question, one with about 50 different answers depending on how honest he was willing to be. Ethan thought about his house, the routines that kept them safe, the walls he'd built so carefully. Thought about Lily's list of best days and how maybe he wanted to add to it instead of just protecting what they already had. I want you to come over, he said, if you want to. Okay. Ava smiled, and it was the real thing, unguarded and bright. Should I follow you? Yeah, it's about 15 minutes outside town. Fair warning, the house is nothing special, and Lily wasn't kidding about the fossil collection. It's basically taken over her bedroom. I can handle rocks. Ava started toward her Honda, then turned back. Ethan? Yeah? I'm glad Marcus wouldn't shut up. She was in her car before he could respond, backing out of the space with those same jerky movements he'd noticed Thursday night. Ethan climbed into his truck, started the engine, and looked at Lily in the rearview mirror. You like her, Lily announced. I barely know her. But you like her. It wasn't a question. Ethan pulled out of the lot, watching Ava's Honda in his mirror. Yeah, I think I do. Good. Lily went back to her triceratops. She seems sad sometimes, like she's pretending not to be. But she's nice sad, not mean sad. Nice sad? You know, Like she's been hurt, but it didn't make her mean. It just made her quieter. Lily looked up, meeting his eyes in the mirror. Like you. Sometimes his daughter was too perceptive for her own good. Or maybe for his. The drive home passed quickly, Ava's Honda a steady presence 2 cars back. Ethan spent the time half listening to Lily's continued paleontology lecture, half thinking about what it meant to invite someone into their space. The house wasn't just where they lived, it was the physical manifestation of everything he'd built after the divorce. Safe. Controlled. Theirs. Letting Ava in felt like more than just showing her fossils and making small talk over coffee. He turned onto the gravel driveway, the house coming into view through the trees. It looked smaller in the daylight, a little shabby, the porch railing still waiting for the second coat of stain he kept meaning to apply. Ethan parked and killed the engine, watching Ava pull up beside him. "Remember," he told Lily, "don't overwhelm her." "I'm not overwhelming. I'm enthusiastic." Lily was already out of the truck, bouncing on her toes as Ava climbed out of her car. "Nice place," Ava said, looking around. "I like the trees." "Dad planted most of them," Lily informed her. "He says it's important to give back to the land. Also, they make good climbing." "Does your dad let you climb them?" "He pretends not to." Lily grabbed Ava's hand. "Come on, I'll show you my room first, then we can have the tour." Ethan followed them inside, seeing the house through Ava's eyes. The lived-in clutter, Lily's art projects covering the fridge, the bookshelf that was mostly field guides and fantasy novels. It wasn't dirty, but it wasn't magazine perfect either. It was a place where people actually lived. "Shoes off or on?" Ava asked at the door. "Off," Lily said. "House rules." They shed their shoes and Lily led them down the hall to her room, which was exactly as chaotic as Ethan had warned. The fossil collection dominated one whole wall, carefully arranged on shelves Ethan had built last year. Posters of dinosaurs and space covered another wall, and her bed was piled high with stuffed animals that she claimed she was too old for, but refused to part with. "This is the trilobite," Lily said, pulling down a rock with the fossilized creature preserved in stone. "It's from the Devonian period, which was like 400 million years ago. Can you imagine? 400 million years and this little guy is still here." Ava took the fossil carefully, turning it over in her hands. "That's incredible." "I know, right?" Lily launched into explanations of each specimen, and Ava listened with what seemed like genuine interest, asking questions that made Lily's face light up. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching them. This was the test he hadn't consciously known he was giving, whether Ava would fake enthusiasm or actually engage with the things that mattered to his daughter. She was passing with flying colors, and that scared him almost as much as it relieved him. After the fossil tour, they moved to the kitchen. Ethan made coffee while Lily showed Ava her drawings, explaining the complex taxonomy of every dinosaur she'd illustrated. Ava sat at the kitchen table, nodding along, occasionally asking clarifying questions that sent Lily into excited tangents. "You're good with her," Ethan said quietly when Lily ran to grab another sketchbook. "She's easy to be good with. She's smart and funny and doesn't expect me to be anyone I'm not." Ava accepted the coffee mug he offered. "Kids are honest. If she didn't like me, I'd know." "That's true." He sat across from her. "But still, thank you for this, for being patient with her." "I'm not being patient. I'm actually having fun." Ava smiled over her mug. "Is that weird?" "No." Ethan realized he meant it. "It's nice." Lily returned with 3 sketchbooks and an annotated timeline of the Mesozoic era she'd created for a school project. The afternoon unspooled slowly, the 3 of them settling into an easy rhythm. At some point, Ethan ordered pizza because nobody had eaten lunch, and it was suddenly past 2. They ate in the living room, Lily monopolizing the conversation with stories about school and her friends and the elaborate fantasy world she'd created where dinosaurs never went extinct. Around 4, Lily started yawning again, the combined exertion of the market and performing for a guest catching up to her. "Someone needs a nap," Ethan observed. "I'm not tired." You're literally falling asleep on the couch." "That's just resting my eyes." But even as she said it, another yawn cracked her jaw. "How about this?" Ava said. "You rest your eyes for a little bit, and when you wake up, we can watch a documentary. Your choice." "About dinosaurs? Is there any other kind?" Lily considered this, weighing her desire to keep hanging out against her body's very obvious need for sleep. Okay, but only for 30 minutes. Deal. Ethan carried her to her room, tucked her in despite her protests that she was too old for tucking in, and returned to find Ava examining the bookshelf in the living room. You have good taste, she said, tilting her head to read the spines. McCarthy, Steinbeck, Le Guin, not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know, maybe more. Carpentry manuals? She pulled out a worn copy of The Left Hand of Darkness. Can I borrow this? I've been meaning to reread it. Sure. Ethan settled onto the couch, suddenly aware that they were alone for the first time all day. You read a lot? Used to. Before. She trailed off, sliding the book back. Before everything got complicated. I'm trying to get back into it. What made it complicated? Ava sat in the armchair across from him, curling her legs underneath her. My ex. He thought reading was a waste of time, especially fiction. He was very practical, very focused on productivity and optimization, and making every minute count towards some concrete goal. Sounds exhausting. It was. She looked down at her hands. I didn't realize how much of myself I'd given up until I left. All the small things, books, lazy Sundays, staying up late for no reason. He wanted me to be this polished, efficient version of myself. And I tried. For way too long. What changed? I woke up one morning and couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed. Really laughed. Not the performance kind. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? Ava's voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the weight underneath. So I started planning my exit. Took me 3 months to actually do it, but I got out. He didn't take it well? That's an understatement. She looked up, meeting his eyes. He's not dangerous or anything, just persistent. He keeps calling, texting, showing up places, trying to convince me I made a mistake, that I'll never find better than what we had. Something cold settled in Ethan's stomach. Is that why you moved here? To get away from him? Partially. Also because I needed to prove to myself I could start over, build a life that was actually mine. She paused. I probably should have mentioned this before. The fact that I'm basically running from my past. It's not exactly first date material. We're past first dates. Are we? I brought you home to meet my daughter and see her fossil collection. I think that counts. Ava smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I just don't want you to think I'm bringing drama into your life. You and Lily have something good here, something stable. I don't want to mess that up. Ethan thought about what Lily had said. Nice, sad, not mean sad. About how Ava had spent the whole day being present and engaged without pretending to be someone she wasn't. About the way his chest had felt lighter since Thursday, like he'd been holding his breath for years, and finally remembered how to exhale. You're not messing anything up, he said. But I need to know, is this guy going to show up here? Is he going to be a problem? No, he doesn't know where I am. I was careful. Ava's hands twisted in her lap. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. You told me now. That's what matters. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Look, I get it. Running from something. Trying to build a life where you feel safe. I've been doing that for 7 years. Is it working? It was. Until Thursday. He smiled to take the edge off. Now, I'm not so sure. Good, not sure, or bad, not sure. Still figuring that out. They sat in silence, the house quiet except for the ticking of the clock in the kitchen. Outside, the sun was starting its descent, casting long shadows across the living room floor. I should probably go, Ava said, but she didn't move. Let you and Lily have your evening. You can stay for dinner if you want. It won't be anything fancy, probably just grilled cheese and tomato soup. That sounds perfect, actually. She hesitated. But are you sure? I don't want to overstay my welcome. You're not. Ethan stood, heading toward the kitchen. Besides, you promised Lily a documentary. Can't back out now. True, she'd never forgive me. Ava followed him. Can I help with dinner? You can chop tomatoes if you want. Fair warning, my kitchen organization system is chaotic at best. I think I can handle it. They worked side by side, falling into an easy rhythm. Ava found the cutting board and knife without asking, started dicing tomatoes while Ethan pulled out bread and cheese. They didn't talk much, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just two people existing in the same space, making something together. Lily emerged from her room at 5:30, hair mussed and eyes still sleepy. "I smell food." "Dinner's almost ready," Ethan said. "Did you rest your eyes?" "Yeah, I had a dream about flying dinosaurs. It was cool." She climbed onto a kitchen stool. "Are you staying for dinner, Ava?" "If that's okay with you." "It's very okay." Lily grinned. "After we eat, can we watch the documentary about the Cretaceous period? It has really good graphics." "Absolutely." They ate at the kitchen table, Lily chattering about her dream and asking Ava questions about Boston and what it was like to live near the ocean. Ava answered honestly, painting a picture of a life that had looked good on paper but felt empty in practice. She didn't sugarcoat it, didn't try to make it sound better or worse than it was, just told the truth. Lily absorbed it all with the seriousness of someone twice her age, occasionally nodding like a therapist receiving crucial information. After dinner, they migrated to the living room. Lily queued up the documentary on the TV while Ethan and Ava cleaned up the dishes. The light outside had faded to deep blue, and through the window Ethan could see stars beginning to emerge. "Thank you for today," Ava said quietly, drying the last plate. "All of it. The market, meeting Lily, this. I didn't realize how much I needed normal until I had it." "This is normal for you?" "It could be." She set down the towel. "If you'd let it." Ethan turned to face her fully. They were close enough in the small kitchen that he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, the way she was holding her breath waiting for his answer. "I'd like that," he said. "But I need to be honest with you. I'm not good at this. Letting people in. I've spent so long making sure Lily and I were okay on our own that I don't really know how to make room for someone else. I'm not asking for room, not yet. I'm just asking for a chance." "You've got it." The words came easier than he expected. "But we take this slow, for Lily's sake." "For both your sakes," Ava corrected gently. From the living room, Lily called out, "Are you guys coming? The documentary is starting, and I don't want to pause it." They joined her on the couch, Lily in the middle, and settled in to watch ancient creatures dominate a world that no longer existed. Ethan found his attention drifting from the screen to Ava, who was completely absorbed in the narrator's explanation of pterosaur flight mechanics. Lily leaned against her shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world, and Ava's arm came up automatically to make room. Something in Ethan's chest cracked open, not painfully but like a window unsealing after winter. Light getting in. Maybe this was what it felt like to stop just surviving. The documentary ended with a dramatic recreation of the asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs, and Lily sat up with the triumphant energy of someone who just witnessed their favorite team win. "See? That's why we need to take extinction seriously. One bad day and everything's gone." "Cheerful thought," Ava said, stretching, "really takes the pressure off. It's not about pressure, it's about awareness." Lily hopped off the couch, suddenly energized despite the late hour. "Can we make popcorn and watch another one?" Ethan checked his watch. Nearly 8. "It's a school night." "But Ava's here." "Which is why you should have been in bed 30 minutes ago." Lily's face fell into the expression she used when deploying her most devastating weapon. Logical argument combined with strategic disappointment. "But we never have guests on school nights. This is special. Special occasions deserve exceptions." "Nice try." Ethan stood, gathering the empty mugs from the coffee table. "Brush your teeth. I'll be up in 10 minutes to check." "Fine." Lily turned to Ava. "Will you come back?" "If your dad's okay with it." "Of course I am." The answer came automatically, and Ethan realized he meant it without reservation. 2 weeks ago, the thought of someone becoming a regular presence in their lives would have sent him into a spiral of anxiety. Now it just felt right. "Then yes," Ava said to Lily. "I'll come back." "Promise?" "Promise." Lily seemed satisfied with this. She hugged Ava quickly, then Ethan, and thundered upstairs with enough noise to wake the neighbors they didn't have. Alone again, Ethan and Ava stood in the living room, the silence settling around them like snow. Outside, full dark had fallen. and through the window Ethan could see his workshop silhouetted against the night sky. "I should go," Ava said, but she didn't move toward the door. "Yeah." Ethan didn't move either. Today was good, really good. It was. Ava smiled, ducking her head. "We're not great at goodbyes, are we?" "Apparently not." He walked her to the door where her shoes sat next to Lily's rain boots. "Drive safe. Text me when you get home so I know you made it." "That's very dad of you." Occupational hazard. She laced up her shoes, taking her time with the knots. When she straightened, she was close enough that Ethan could smell her shampoo, something floral he couldn't identify. "Thank you for letting me in. I know it wasn't easy." "It was easier than I expected." He opened the door, and cold air rushed in. "Ava?" "Yeah?" "Whatever you're running from, if it shows up here, you tell me, okay? You don't deal with it alone." Something shifted in her expression, vulnerability and relief mixing together. "Okay." She left then, jogging across the gravel to her Honda. Ethan watched her back out, her taillights disappearing down the dark road, then closed the door and stood in the entryway trying to categorize what he was feeling. It wasn't just attraction, though that was there. It was something more complicated, the sense that his life was changing in ways he couldn't control, and for once, that didn't terrify him. His phone buzzed 15 minutes later while he was checking that Lily had actually brushed her teeth and not just wet the toothbrush, her go-to shortcut. "Ava. Home safe. Thank you again for today." Ethan. "Thank you for being so good with Lily." Ava. "She makes it easy. See you soon?" Ethan. "Yeah, soon." He pocketed the phone and finished the bedtime routine, reading Lily 2 chapters from the fantasy novel they'd been working through. She was asleep before he finished the 2nd chapter, her breathing evening out into the rhythm that meant she was truly down for the count. Ethan stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her sleep, and thought about what she'd said at the market, how her mom leaving was one of her best days because it meant it was just the 2 of them, and they were good. They had been good. They were good, but maybe they could be better. The next 2 weeks unfolded with a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. Ava came over for dinner twice, both times bringing groceries and insisting on cooking despite Ethan's protests that his kitchen was barely functional. She made pasta from scratch, with Lily's enthusiastic but largely unhelpful assistance, and they ate at the table like it was something they'd always done. On the 2nd visit, Lily asked if Ava wanted to see the workshop. "You don't have to," Ethan said quickly. "It's just where I work. Nothing exciting." "I'd love to see it," Ava said, and she sounded like she meant it. The workshop was Ethan's sanctuary, the place he went when the world felt too loud or too complicated. Sawdust covered the concrete floor, and tools hung on pegboards with the precision of someone who needed order in at least one area of his life. In the center of the room sat a half-finished table, cherry wood sanded smooth and waiting for its final finish. "This is beautiful," Ava said, running her hand along the table's edge. "What is it?" "Commission for a couple in town, anniversary present." Ethan picked up a piece of sandpaper, turning it over in his hands. They wanted something that would last, something their grandkids could fight over someday. That's a lot of pressure. "I like the pressure, means it matters." He set down the sandpaper. "You want to try?" "Try what?" "Sanding. It's meditative once you get into it." Ava looked skeptical but game. Ethan showed her how to move with the grain, applying even pressure, feeling for imperfections in the wood. They worked in silence for a while, just the rasp of sandpaper and Lily's distant chatter from the house where she was supposedly doing homework. "Can I ask you something?" Ava said after a while. "Sure." "Why carpentry? What made you choose this?" Ethan considered the question. "I was studying business in college, hated every second of it. My roommate's dad was a furniture maker, and one weekend I helped him with a project. Just basic stuff, cutting, sanding, finishing, but something about it felt right, taking raw materials and making something that would outlast you. So you dropped out?" "Switched majors. My parents were thrilled." He smiled at the memory. "They came around eventually, especially after they saw I could actually make a living at it." "Do you ever regret it? Not finishing the business degree?" "Never. This is the only thing I've ever done that feels like mine. Not something I'm doing because I'm supposed to, or because someone expects it, just because I want to." Ava nodded, still sanding. I get that. Graphic design was my rebellion. My family wanted me to be a lawyer, practical, prestigious, safe. But I wanted to make things that were beautiful just for the sake of being beautiful. Your ex, did he support that? At first, then it became a hobby he tolerated rather than something he respected. She paused, examining the wood. He made good money in finance, thought art was frivolous unless it was an investment. By the end, I was taking projects I hated just to prove I was contributing something tangible. That's fucked up. Yeah, eat that. Ava set down her sandpaper. But I'm done with that. Done letting other people decide what matters. They worked until the light faded and Lily appeared in the doorway to announce she'd finished her homework and started on tomorrow's just to be safe, which was definitely a lie, but Ethan appreciated the effort. Inside, over reheated coffee and the cookies Ava had brought, Lily asked the question Ethan had been dreading. Are you guys dating? Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. Ava's eyes went wide. What makes you ask that? Ethan managed. You have that look. The one people get in movies when they like each other but don't want to say it out loud. Lily stirred her milk with scientific precision. Also, you text a lot. I see you smiling at your phone. Since when are you Sherlock Holmes? Since always. I'm very observant. She looked between them expectantly. So are you? Ethan glanced at Ava, who looked equally uncertain about how to answer. They hadn't defined what this was, hadn't had the conversation about labels and expectations. It had just been happening, organic and unforced. We're figuring it out, Ava said finally. Is that okay with you? Lily considered this with her usual seriousness. As long as you're not going to disappear, I don't want to get used to you being around and then have you leave. The honesty of it was brutal. Ethan felt something crack in his chest. Lily, he started, but Ava held up a hand. That's fair, she said, meeting Lily's eyes. I can't promise nothing will ever change, but I can promise I won't disappear without explanation. If something happens, you'll know why. Deal? Lily held out her pinky. Deal. They hooked fingers, and just like that, the tension dissolved. Lily returned to her cookies, apparently satisfied, while Ethan tried to process what had just happened. Later, after Ava left and Lily was in bed, he stood in the kitchen replaying the conversation. His daughter had just negotiated relationship terms with a woman he'd known for 2 weeks. It should have felt absurd. Instead, it felt necessary. His phone buzzed. Ava, is Lily okay? I didn't mean to overstep. Ethan, she's fine. You handled that perfectly. Ava, I meant what I said. I won't just vanish. Ethan, I know. He wanted to say more, that he was starting to care about her in ways that scared him, that the thought of her becoming part of their life felt both exactly right and completely terrifying. But it was late, and those were the kind of words that needed to be said in person, not through a screen. Ethan, coffee tomorrow, just us. Ava, I'd like that. They met at the same cafe where they'd had their first date, which Ava claimed was tempting fate, but showed up anyway. Ethan got there first and snagged the corner booth, watching the door with the nervous energy of someone about to do something irreversible. Ava arrived 5 minutes late, breathless and apologetic. Sorry, client call ran long. It's fine. He'd already ordered her coffee, black, the way she liked it. How's work? Good. Busy. I picked up a few new clients this week, which is great but also means I'm drowning in deadlines. She wrapped her hands around the mug. But that's not why you wanted to meet. No. So what's up? Ethan had rehearsed this conversation in his head a dozen times on the drive over. Now, sitting across from her, all his planned words evaporated. I like you, he said bluntly. More than I expected to. And I think Lily likes you, which is maybe even more important. But I need to know what you want from this. Because if it's just casual, if you're killing time until you figure out your next move, I need to know now, before this goes any further. Ava didn't answer immediately. She looked down at her coffee, and Ethan's stomach dropped, certain he'd misread everything. I don't do casual, she said finally. I tried that after I left Boston, went on a few dates, tried to be the kind of person who could keep things light and fun and uncomplicated. Turns out, I'm not wired that way. So what are you wired for? Something real. Something that matters. She looked up. I know it's fast. We've known each other for 2 weeks, but I haven't felt this clear about anything in years. So if you're asking if I'm serious about this, about you and Lily, the answer is yes. Relief hit Ethan like a physical force. Okay. I'm serious too, but I have rules. Rules? Ava's eyebrows rose. Lily comes first, always. If there's ever a conflict between what's good for her and what's good for us, she wins, obviously. And we take this slow. I don't want her getting attached and then having it fall apart. So no moving in together next week or talk about future plans until we're sure this is sustainable. Agreed. What else? Honesty. Complete honesty. If something's wrong, we talk about it. We don't let it fester. Ethan leaned forward. And if your ex becomes a problem, if he finds you or shows up or makes you feel unsafe, you tell me immediately. No protecting me from it. Ava's expression softened. Okay, that's it. Those are my rules. Those are good rules. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. I have one too. What? You let me see the messy parts, not just the dad who has everything under control, the person underneath who's still figuring it out. Her thumb traced circles on his wrist. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be real. I can do that. He turned his hand over, lacing their fingers together. So we're doing this? We're doing this. They sat like that for a while, hands linked across the table, working out the logistics. They agreed to see each other twice a week to start, once with Lily, once just the two of them. They'd tell Marcus and Sarah they were officially together, which would unleash a tsunami of smugness, but was unavoidable. They'd keep things quiet at first, not make a big production out of it, just let it develop naturally. It felt grown up and measured, the kind of conversation Ethan had never managed to have in his 20s. Maybe that's what happened when you had a kid and a mortgage and enough life experience to know that feelings weren't enough. You needed foundation, structure, agreements about how to handle the inevitable complications. Over the next week, they settled into a pattern. Tuesday nights were dinner at Ethan's place, Ava bringing groceries and cooking while Lily did homework at the kitchen table. Fridays were date nights, dinner in town, sometimes a movie, once just a long walk by the lake that ended with them sitting on a bench talking until the streetlights came on. The first time Ethan kissed her was after one of those walks. They were standing by her car in the parking lot, and Ava was telling a story about a client who wanted their logo to really pop without any idea what that meant. And she laughed at her own impression of the guy's voice, and Ethan just leaned in. It was brief, tentative, testing. Ava froze for half a second, then kissed him back, her hand coming up to rest against his chest. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "Took you long enough?" she said. "I wanted to be sure." "Are you sure now?" "Getting there." She kissed him again longer this time, and Ethan felt the last of his reservations crumble. This was happening. This was real. Everything would have been perfect if not for the phone calls. The first one came on a Wednesday afternoon. Ethan was in the workshop, finishing the anniversary table, when his phone rang. Unknown number, Boston area code. He almost didn't answer. "Hello? Is this Ethan Cross?" Male voice, smooth and confident. "Who's asking?" "My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm trying to locate Ava Sinclair. I understand you've been seeing her." Every muscle in Ethan's body went rigid. "How did you get this number?" "That's not important. I just need to speak with Ava. It's urgent. If she wanted to talk to you, she'd answer your calls." "Look, I know she's told you things, her version of events, but there's more to the story than she's letting on." Daniel's voice was reasonable, almost friendly. "I'm worried about her. She left Boston in a fragile state, and I just want to make sure she's okay." "She's fine." "Is she?" Because the Ava I knew wouldn't just uproot her entire life and move across the country without a plan. That's not rational behavior. Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. "She had a plan, getting away from you. I see she's already poisoned you against me." A sigh, perfectly calibrated. "I was hoping we could have a rational conversation, but clearly she's manipulated the narrative. Just tell her I called. Tell her we need to talk about the apartment lease and her things in storage." This doesn't have to be complicated. Don't call this number again. Ethan hung up before Daniel could respond. He stood in the workshop, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. Daniel had his number, which meant he'd been digging, researching, tracking Ava's movements. The thought made Ethan's skin crawl. He called Ava immediately. "Hey," she answered, sounding happy. "What's up?" "Your ex just called me." Silence. Then, "What did he say?" Ethan relayed the conversation, watching through the window as clouds rolled in from the mountains. "He said he got my number, but he wouldn't say how." "Ava, how does he even know about me?" "I don't know." Her voice had gone flat, defensive. "I haven't talked to him since I left. I blocked his number, his email, everything. He mentioned an apartment lease, storage. That's bullshit. I paid out the lease before I left, and I don't have anything in storage. He's lying. Why? Because that's what he does. He creates problems so he can swoop in and fix them, makes himself indispensable." Ava's breath was shaky. "I'm sorry. I didn't think he'd find you." "It's not your fault." Ethan forced himself to stay calm, to think practically. "But we need to figure out how he got my information. Who knows about us?" "Just Marcus and Sarah. And your mom." "Then he's either really good at internet stalking or someone talked." "I'll call Sarah, see if she mentioned anything to anyone." A pause. "Ethan, if this is too much, if you want to step back, I understand." "I'm not stepping back, but I am taking this seriously. If he calls again, I'm going to the police." "He won't. He's just testing boundaries, seeing if he can get a reaction." Ava sounded tired. "This is what he did in Boston. Push, push, push until I broke down and talked to him. Then he'd apologize and promise to leave me alone, and the cycle would start over. That stops now. You can't control him." "No, but I can make it clear that you're not alone anymore. That if he wants to harass you, he has to go through me first." Ava was quiet for a long moment. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just promise you'll tell me if anything else happens. Any calls, any messages, anything that feels off. I promise." They hung up, and Ethan stood in the workshop trying to shake the cold fury that had settled into his bones. He'd never met Daniel Mercer, but he already hated him with a clarity that was almost refreshing. This was the man who'd made Ava question herself, who'd driven her across the country just to breathe freely. And now he was trying to pull her back. That night, Ethan told his mother about the call. Ellen listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. "You need to be careful," she said when he finished. "Men like that don't let go easily." "I know. Does Lily know?" "No, and I want to keep it that way for now. She doesn't need to worry about adult problems." Ellen nodded. "What's your plan if he escalates?" "Document everything. Keep a record of every contact. If it continues, file a police report." Ethan rubbed his face. "I just don't understand why he's doing this. They've been broken up for months. Why can't he move on?" "Because he doesn't see her as a person. He sees her as something he owned that walked away." His mother's voice was grim. "I've seen this before. Your father's sister dated a man like this. It took years for him to finally leave her alone. That's encouraging." "I'm not trying to encourage you. I'm trying to prepare you." Ellen reached across the table, gripping his hand. "But I also think you're doing the right thing. Ava needs someone in her corner, and you've always been good at protecting the people you love." "I don't love her. Not yet. It's too soon." His mother just smiled. "If you say so." The second call came 3 days later. This time, Daniel left a voicemail. "Ethan, I know you're angry. I get it. But you're only hearing one side of this story. Ava has a history of running when things get difficult. Did she tell you about the job she quit without notice? The friends she cut off because they questioned her decisions? She's not stable. I'm not saying this to hurt her. I'm saying it because I care and because you deserve to know what you're getting into. Call me back. Let's have an honest conversation, man to man." Ethan deleted the message and blocked the number. Then he called Ava. "He left a voicemail," he said without preamble. "Tried to convince me you're unstable. Said you have a history of running." "I quit a job because my boss was sexually harassing me," Ava said, her voice tight. "And I cut off friends who told me I should stay with Daniel because he was stable and successful." That's the history he's talking about. I figured it was something like that. You believe me? Of course I believe you. Ethan paced his bedroom, phone pressed to his ear. The question is, what do we do now? He's blocked, but that's not going to stop him if he's determined. I don't know. I've never dealt with this from a distance before. In Boston, I could see him coming. Here, I have no idea what he's planning. Then we need to be proactive. Change your number, increase your privacy settings on social media. Maybe even talk to a lawyer about a cease and desist. That feels extreme. He called my personal phone, Ava. Found out where I live, who I am, what I do. That's already extreme. She was quiet, and he could hear her breathing, could picture her standing in her half-unpacked apartment, trying to decide how much to let this man continue to control her life. Okay, she said finally. I'll change my number, and I'll talk to a lawyer. But Ethan, I don't want this to ruin what we're building. Don't let him take up space in your head. Little late for that. I know. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. This isn't your fault. They talked for another 20 minutes, Ava explaining the full history with Daniel, how he'd been charming at first, supportive even. But slowly the control had tightened, how he'd insisted on managing their finances because he was better with money, how he'd commented on her clothes, her friends, the projects she took on, how by the end, she'd felt like a supporting character in her own life. I should have left sooner, she said. I knew it was wrong, but he was so good at making me doubt myself. That's what abusers do. He never hit me. Abuse isn't just physical. Ethan sat on his bed staring at the ceiling. And you did leave. That's what matters. Yeah. She sounded exhausted. I just wish he'd accept that and move on. He will, eventually. We just have to outlast him. After they hung up, Ethan lay in the dark, listening to the house settle. Down the hall, Lily was asleep, safe and unaware of the complications unfolding around her. He wanted to keep it that way, wanted to protect her from the messiness of adult relationships and the reality that sometimes people refuse to let go. But he also knew that was impossible. Life was messy, relationships were complicated. The best he could do was handle it with as much grace as possible and hope that was enough. The third call came to Ava directly. She'd changed her number, but somehow Daniel had gotten the new one. He left a message saying he was worried, that he just wanted to make sure she was okay, that he missed her and they should talk. Ava played it for Ethan over dinner at his place. Lily was at a friend's house for a sleepover, giving them rare time alone. He sounds so reasonable, Ava said, setting down her phone. That's what makes it crazy-making. If I played this for someone who didn't know the context, they'd think I was overreacting. You're not overreacting. How do you know? Maybe I am. Maybe I'm blowing this out of proportion because I'm scared of getting close to someone again. Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. Do you think you're overreacting? No. Then you're not. Trust yourself. Ava's eyes filled, and she looked away, blinking hard. I'm so tired of this, of him, of feeling like I'm looking over my shoulder all the time. So we do something about it. Tomorrow we go to the police, file a report, start a paper trail. Then we talk to a lawyer about a restraining order. What if it makes things worse? What if it makes things better? Ethan squeezed her hand. You can't live like this, constantly afraid he's going to show up or call or find some new way to insert himself into your life. At some point, you have to draw a line. And if he crosses it, then we deal with it, together. Ava looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. This isn't your problem. It is now. He said it simply because it was true. Somewhere in the last 3 weeks, Ava had become part of his life in a way that made her problems, her safety, his concern. Besides, I'm good at dealing with difficult people. Comes with the carpentry territory. She laughed, watery but real. Yeah? You'd be surprised how many clients think they can bully me into custom work for IKEA prices. I've developed a thick skin. This is different. Not that different. Same principle. Set boundaries, hold the line, don't let people walk over you just because they're loud. They cleaned up dinner together, finding comfort in the mundane task. Afterwards, they sat on the couch, Ava curled against Ethan's side, and he told her about the anniversary table he'd finished, about Lily's latest scheme to convince him they needed a dog, about his mother's ongoing campaign to get him to eat more vegetables. Normal things, safe things. A reminder that life existed outside of Daniel Mercer and his unwanted intrusions. "Thank you," Ava said quietly. "For what?" "For not running. Most people would have bailed by now. Too much drama, too complicated. I don't run." "No," she agreed, tilting her head to look at him. "You don't?" Ethan kissed her then, slow and deliberate, trying to communicate everything he couldn't yet say out loud. That he was in this. That she mattered. That whatever came next, they'd handle it together. When they broke apart, Ava was smiling. "So, tomorrow we go to the police?" "Tomorrow we go to the police." "Okay." She settled back against him. "One more thing." "What?" "If this works, if we actually make it through this mess and come out the other side, I want to meet your mom properly. Not just in passing, actually sit down and have a conversation." "She'd like that." "Yeah? She already likes you. She thinks you're good for me." "Am I?" Ethan considered the question. 3 weeks ago, his life had been simple, predictable, safe. Now it was complicated and uncertain, with an ex-boyfriend making threatening calls and a future that felt less stable than it had in years. But it also felt more alive. "Yeah," he said. "You are." They sat in the quiet living room, the house empty except for them, and Ethan thought about the next day. About walking into a police station and filing a report against a man he'd never met. About lawyers and restraining orders and all the bureaucratic machinery required to tell someone to leave you alone. It felt overwhelming, but it also felt necessary. Because Ava deserved to live without fear, and Lily deserved to see what it looked like when someone stood up for the people they cared about. And Ethan deserved to stop just protecting what he had and start building something new, even if it was messy, even if it was hard, maybe especially then. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Ethan sat beside Ava in the waiting area, watching her twist a tissue between her fingers until it shredded into confetti. She'd been silent the entire drive, staring out the window like she could will herself somewhere else. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "We can leave right now." "No." She dropped the tissue remnants into her lap. "I'm done running." A uniformed officer appeared, clipboard in hand. "Ava Sinclair?" They followed her to a small office that probably doubled as a storage room based on the boxes stacked against one wall. The officer, Rodriguez, according to her nameplate, gestured for them to sit. "So you're being harassed by an ex-partner?" Rodriguez pulled out a form, pen poised. "Yes, Daniel Mercer. We broke up 4 months ago in Boston. I moved here to get away from him, but he's been calling, multiple times." Ava's voice was steady, but Ethan could see her hand shaking in her lap. "He called my boyfriend's number somehow, found out where I was living." "Has he threatened you directly?" "Not in those words, but he's persistent. He won't accept that it's over." Rodriguez wrote this down. "Any history of violence?" "No, he never hit me. But he was controlling. About money, my work, who I spent time with." Ava paused. "Is that enough? For a report?" "It's enough to document what's happening. Whether we can do more depends on whether he escalates." Rodriguez looked up. "I'll be honest with you. Unless there's a direct threat, Colorado law makes it hard to get a restraining order for someone out of state. But having this on record means if he does show up, or if the harassment continues, we have a foundation. So basically, I have to wait until he does something worse." "Unfortunately, yes, that's how the system works." Rodriguez's expression was sympathetic. "But you're doing the right thing. Most people don't report until it's already a crisis." They spent the next hour going through everything. The timeline of calls, the content of the voicemails, how Daniel had obtained Ethan's information. Rodriguez took notes with the methodical patience of someone who'd heard variations of this story too many times. When they finally walked out, Ava looked hollowed out. "That was useless," she said in the parking lot. "It wasn't useless. Now there's documentation. Documentation that does nothing unless he actually hurts me. Great system." She leaned against Ethan's truck, tilting her face toward the sun. I knew it would be like this. I just hoped I was wrong. Ethan wanted to argue, to tell her it would get better, that the police report mattered, but standing there in the parking lot, he couldn't summon the platitudes. The truth was, the system was broken, and Ava was right to be frustrated. We still have the lawyer option, he offered. Yeah, another person who'll take my money and tell me there's nothing they can do unless he crosses a line he's too smart to cross. Ava pushed off the truck. Can we not talk about this anymore today? I just want to pretend everything's normal for a few hours. Sure. What do you want to do? Can we pick up Lily from her sleepover? I want to hear about normal 7-year-old problems, like whether dinosaurs could swim or if the tooth fairy is recession-proof. The tooth fairy is definitely recession-proof. Lily's been tracking the going rate. See? That's the kind of problem I can handle right now. They drove to Marcus and Sarah's place, where Lily had spent the night with their daughter Emma. The girls were in the backyard when they arrived, engaged in what appeared to be an elaborate reenactment of the Cretaceous period using stuffed animals and a cardboard box painted to look like a volcano. Dad! Lily spotted him through the window and came running. Emma and I figured out what really killed the dinosaurs, and it wasn't just the asteroid. Oh yeah? What was it? Climate change from volcanic activity combined with the asteroid impact created a cascading ecological collapse. She said this with the confidence of someone defending a dissertation. The asteroid gets all the credit, but the volcanoes were already making things bad. That's very thorough. I know. Lily noticed Ava. You're here too. Did you come to hear about our research? Absolutely. I've been waiting all morning to hear about volcanic activity. Marcus appeared on the porch, coffee mug in hand. They've been at this since 6 a.m. I've learned more about the Deccan traps than I ever wanted to know. The Deccan traps are extremely important to understanding mass extinction events, Lily informed him seriously. I'm sure they are. Marcus caught Ethan's eye, raising his eyebrows in question. Ethan gave a small shake of his head. Later. Sarah came out with Emma, and the girls immediately launched into a presentation of their findings, complete with visual aids and sound effects. Ava sat cross-legged on the grass, asking questions and nodding along like this was the most important scientific briefing she'd ever attended. Watching her with Lily, Ethan felt something settle in his chest. This was what he'd been protecting, this ease, this normalcy. But maybe protection meant more than just keeping threats out. Maybe it also meant letting the right people in. She's good with her, Sarah said, appearing at his elbow. Yeah. You look tired. We went to the police station this morning, filed a harassment report against her ex. Sarah's expression shifted. Is he still calling? Got her new number somehow? Won't leave her alone. Ethan kept his voice low. Did you mention anything to anyone? About us? Just my sister. Why? He found my phone number. Had to get it from somewhere. Shit. Sarah looked stricken. My sister's dating a guy who works in tech. He's always talking about how easy it is to find information online. But I swear I didn't give him your name or anything specific. It's fine, not your fault. Ethan rubbed his face. We're just trying to figure out how to stop him without it turning into a bigger mess. Is Lily safe? The question hit harder than it should have. Yeah, he doesn't know about her. We're keeping it that way. They stayed for lunch, the girls chattering about their plans to build a more scientifically accurate volcano. Emma's enthusiasm for geology was clearly inspired by Lily's dinosaur obsession, and watching them collaborate with the seriousness of actual researchers was the kind of absurd joy Ethan needed. On the drive home, Lily talked non-stop about the sleepover, barely pausing for breath. Ava listened from the passenger seat, occasionally glancing at Ethan with an expression he couldn't quite read. At the house, Lily went to unpack while Ethan and Ava settled in the kitchen. He made coffee on autopilot, trying to shake the feeling that something was shifting, that they were approaching a precipice. I've been thinking, Ava said. About? Maybe I should leave. Go somewhere else, start over again. She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. Daniel knows I'm in Colorado Springs now. He could show up. And if he does, I don't want Lily anywhere near that. Ethan set down the coffee pot harder than necessary. You're not leaving. It might be safer. For who? Not for you. You'd just be running again, and he'd eventually find you again. He turned to face her. And definitely not safer for me and Lily, because we'd spend the rest of our lives wondering if you were okay. Ethan, no, listen to me. He crossed the kitchen, taking her hands. You said you were done running. You meant that, right? Yes, but then don't run. Stay. Fight. Let me help you fight. His grip tightened. I know it's scary. I know every instinct you have is screaming at you to disappear before this gets worse. But disappearing doesn't fix anything. It just means he wins. Ava's eyes were bright with unshed tears. What if he does show up? What if this turns into something that hurts you or Lily? Then we deal with it, together. But you don't get to make decisions about leaving without talking to me first. That's not how this works. How what works? Us. He said it firmly. You and me. We're a team now, which means we make decisions together. We've been dating for 3 weeks. I don't care, I'm all in. So unless you're telling me you're not, unless you want out for reasons that have nothing to do with protecting us, then you stay. The tears spilled over. Ava pulled her hands free and wiped her face. I'm terrified. Me too. Of what? That you'll leave. That Daniel will show up. That I'll screw this up somehow and lose the best thing that's happened to me in years. Ethan moved closer. But I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear make decisions for me. When did you get so brave? About 20 seconds ago. I'm mostly winging it. She laughed through the tears, and then she was kissing him, desperate and fierce. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, holding on like she might vanish if he let go. When they broke apart, Ava rested her forehead against his. Okay. Okay? I'll stay. I won't run. She pulled back to look at him. But if this gets dangerous, if he becomes a real threat, we revisit this conversation. Fair enough. Lily appeared in the doorway, stopping short when she saw them. Are you guys okay? Yeah. Ava wiped her face again. Just having a moment. A good moment or a bad moment? Good, Ethan said. Definitely good. Lily looked between them with her usual too perceptive stare. Ava's staying, right? She's not leaving? I'm staying, Ava confirmed. Good. Lily nodded once, satisfied. Because I already told Emma you'd help us with the volcano, and it would be really embarrassing if I had to explain that you left. Can't have that, Ava said seriously. Exactly. Lily grabbed an apple from the counter. Also, Dad, Grandma called. She wants to know if we're coming for dinner Sunday. What did you tell her? That I'd check with you. Lily took a massive bite of apple. Can Ava come? Ethan looked at Ava, who suddenly appeared terrified for entirely new reasons. Do you want to? I should probably meet your mom properly at some point, Ava said. Might as well be Sunday. She's going to interrogate you. I figured. And she'll tell embarrassing stories about me as a kid. Even better. Okay then. Ethan pulled out his phone to text his mother. Sunday dinner. Fair warning, she makes enough food for an army and will insist you take home leftovers. I can live with that. Sunday arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of late October day that felt like summer's last gasp. Ellen had insisted they come early, which meant she'd have more time to grill Ava under the guise of food preparation. Relax, Ethan told Ava as they pulled into his mother's driveway. She's going to love you. You don't know that. She already likes you. She told me last week you were the best thing to happen to me since the divorce. She said that? Verbatim. Ava didn't look reassured. She smoothed down her shirt for the third time, took a deep breath, and climbed out of the truck. Ellen answered the door before they could knock, pulling Lily into a hug and beaming at Ava. You must be Ava. I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope. Mostly. Ellen winked. Come in, come in. I hope you like pot roast because I made enough to feed the neighborhood. The house smelled like home, roasted meat and herbs and the underlying scent of furniture polish. Ethan's childhood photos lined the hallway, a timeline of questionable haircuts and school portraits. Oh my God, Ava said, stopping at a picture of teenage Ethan with braces and a regrettable attempt at growing his hair long. How old were you here? 15, we don't talk about that phase. We absolutely talk about that phase, Ellen called from the kitchen. That was his guitar player phase. He was convinced he'd be the next Kurt Cobain. I was not. You wore flannel for 2 years straight and learned 3 chords. 4 chords, man, Ethan corrected. Ava was laughing now, the tension in her shoulders easing. Lily dragged her to the living room to show her more embarrassing photos, and Ethan followed his mother to the kitchen. She's lovely, Ellen said, stirring gravy. I know. And clearly crazy about you. I hope so. But there's something else. Something you're not telling me. Ellen set down the spoon and turned to face him. What's wrong? Ethan debated how much to say, then decided his mother had earned honesty. He explained about Daniel, the calls, the police report, the fear that drove Ava to almost leave. Ellen listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This man, she said finally, do you think he's dangerous? I don't know. Probably not physically, but emotionally? Yeah. He's already done damage. And you're prepared to deal with that? Whatever comes next. I have to be. She's worth it. I'm not questioning that. I'm asking if you've thought through what this means for Lily. If this escalates. I know. Ethan cut her off gently. I've thought about it. I'm being careful. But I can't live my life based on worst-case scenarios. At some point, I have to take a risk. Ellen studied him, then nodded. You're right. And for what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Just promise me you'll keep Lily safe. Always. They brought the food to the table, and dinner unfolded with the easy chaos of family meals. Lily dominated the conversation with stories about school and dinosaurs and her ongoing campaign for a dog. Ava fielded Ellen's questions with grace, talking about her work in Boston and the decision to move west. So no family in Colorado? Ellen asked, passing the potatoes. No, my parents are still in Massachusetts. We're not super close. Ava paused. They weren't thrilled when I left Boston. Thought I was throwing away a good thing. Because of Daniel? Because he was stable and successful and looked good on paper. They couldn't understand why that wasn't enough. Ava's smile was tight. We haven't talked much since I left. I'm sorry, that must be hard. It is, but I'm getting used to it. Ava glanced at Ethan, building a new definition of family. Ellen's expression softened. Well, you're welcome at this table any time. Fair warning, though, we're loud and opinionated, and Lily will absolutely monopolize any conversation about extinct megafauna. That sounds perfect, Ava said, and she meant it. After dinner, while Ellen and Lily loaded the dishwasher, Ethan and Ava stepped onto the back porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Your mom's great, Ava said. She likes you. How can you tell? She offered you leftovers without you asking. That's her love language. Ava leaned against the porch railing. This is nice, normal. I'd forgotten what normal felt like. Yeah. Ethan stood beside her, their shoulders touching. We're going to get through this, the Daniel thing, whatever happens. You sound sure. I am sure, because I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you, which means we just have to outlast him. That's simple? That's simple. Ava turned to look at him, and in the fading light her eyes were darker, more serious. I need to tell you something. Ethan's stomach dropped. Okay. I'm falling in love with you. She said it quickly, like confession. I know it's too soon and we agreed to take things slow, but I can't help it. You and Lily, this life you've built, it's everything I didn't know I wanted. And it terrifies me because I've already lost so much. But I needed you to know. Ethan couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the weight of her words settling into his chest like stones. You don't have to say it back, Ava continued. I just needed to be honest. Because if this goes sideways, if Daniel shows up or things get complicated, I want you to know it mattered. You matter. Ava, the sound of shattering glass cut him off. They both spun toward the house, where Lily was standing in the kitchen doorway looking shocked. I'm sorry, she called. I dropped a glass. It's fine. Ellen's voice drifted out. No one move. I'll get the broom. Ethan turned back to Ava, his heart still pounding. You're falling in love with me. Yes, that's inconvenient timing. I'm aware. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, trying to pour everything he couldn't yet say into the gesture. When they broke apart, Ava was smiling. Was that a response? She asked. It was a placeholder. The actual response requires more words than I currently have available. I can wait? Good. He kissed her again, softer this time. But for the record, I'm right there with you. The falling part. Yeah? Yeah. They stood on the porch until Lily yelled that she'd helped clean up the glass and could they please come play cards, and the moment passed into the ordinary rhythm of evening. But something had shifted. A line had been crossed, and there was no going back. Later, after they'd driven home and put Lily to bed, Ethan stood in his workshop staring at a piece of walnut he'd been saving for the right project. The wood was beautiful, dark grain, few knots, solid enough to last generations. He pulled out his sketchpad and started drawing. A bench, maybe. Something Ava could keep, a tangible reminder that she belonged here, that she wasn't temporary. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Sarah's sister's boyfriend might have found something, calling you tomorrow. Ethan. Found what? Marcus. How Daniel got your info. We'll talk tomorrow. Ethan set down the phone and picked up the walnut again, running his fingers over the smooth surface. Tomorrow, they'd deal with Daniel and whatever Marcus had uncovered. Tonight, he just wanted to build something that would last. The next morning, Marcus called before Ethan had finished his first coffee. Okay, so Sarah's sister's boyfriend, his name's Tyler, he does cybersecurity work. I asked him to poke around, see if he could figure out how someone might find your personal info. And? It's not good. Your info's pretty available if you know where to look. Business license, property records, even some of your client reviews mention you by name and location. Marcus paused. But that's not the concerning part. Tyler found a private investigator filing in Massachusetts dated 3 weeks ago. Someone hired a PI to locate Ava Sinclair. The coffee in Ethan's stomach turned to acid. Daniel hired a PI. Tyler can't confirm who hired them, but timeline matches. And PIs have access to databases that can pull phone numbers, addresses, employment history, all the stuff Daniel would need to track her down. So he knows where she lives. Probably. Tyler said these firms are thorough. If Daniel paid for a full workup, he's got everything. Ethan closed his eyes, forcing himself to think clearly. Okay, thanks for checking. Tell Tyler I owe him. What are you going to do? Talk to Ava. Figure out our next steps. He hung up and immediately called Ava, who answered on the second ring sounding groggy. It's 7 a.m. on a Monday. Someone better be dying. Daniel hired a private investigator. He knows where you live. Silence. Then, how do you know? Ethan explained about Tyler, the filing, the timeline. With each word, the reality settled heavier. So what now? Ava's voice was flat. Now we prepare. You stay at my place for a while. We install security cameras. We tell people to look out for someone who doesn't belong. I can't just move in with you. It's practical and temporary, just until we know he's not coming here. Ethan, this is exactly what I was trying to avoid, dragging you into my mess. Too late. I'm already in it. He softened his voice. Come over. We'll figure this out together. She showed up an hour later with a duffel bag and the exhausted look of someone who'd stopped sleeping well weeks ago. Lily was at school, giving them privacy to actually talk. I'm sorry, Ava said immediately. I should have been more careful. Should have known he'd do this. You have nothing to apologize for. This is on him. It's on me for ever dating him in the first place. Stop. Ethan took the duffel bag and set it down. You can't blame yourself for not seeing the future. You left when you figured it out. That's what matters. Ava sank onto the couch, head in her hands. I just wanted a normal life. Is that too much to ask? No, and you're going to have one. We just have to get through this first. They spent the morning making plans. Ethan ordered security cameras from Amazon with overnight shipping. He called the school to put them on alert for anyone asking about Lily. He even talked to his neighbors, the Hendersons, asking them to keep an eye out for unfamiliar cars. Ava called her landlord to explain she'd be staying elsewhere for a while but would continue paying rent. Then she called a different lawyer, this one specializing in stalking cases, and scheduled a consultation. By noon, they'd done everything they could think of. It didn't feel like enough. What if he shows up while Lily's here? Ava asked. Then I handle it. He's not getting near her. You can't control everything. Watch me. Despite the bravado, Ethan's hands were shaking when he made lunch. The reality of the situation was sinking in. This wasn't just phone calls anymore. Daniel was actively looking for Ava, spending money to track her down. That spoke to a level of obsession that went beyond not accepting a breakup. When Lily got home from school, she immediately noticed the duffel bag. Is Ava staying over? She asked, dropping her backpack. For a little while, Ethan said. Is that okay? Obviously it's okay. She can have the guest room. Lily turned to Ava. Do you snore? Because if you snore, you should probably sleep with the door closed. Dad says I snore like a chainsaw, but I think he's exaggerating. I'll keep the door closed, Ava promised. Cool. Lily grabbed a snack from the kitchen. Can we work on my science project tonight? I need help with the poster board. Sure thing. The evening passed with surreal normalcy. They made dinner, worked on the science project, watched a nature documentary about deep-sea creatures. Lily chattered about her day, oblivious to the tension simmering underneath. At bedtime, she hugged Ava goodnight with the casualness of someone who'd already accepted her as part of the household. I'm glad you're here, Lily said. It's more fun when you're around. I'm glad I'm here too, Ava replied, and Ethan could hear the tears she was holding back. After Lily was asleep, they sat in the living room with the lights low. Ava was curled in the armchair, staring at nothing. I keep thinking about what happens if he shows up, she said quietly. What I'll say. How I'll react. You won't have to say anything. I'll handle it. That's not fair to you. Life's not fair. We deal with what we get. Ethan moved to sit on the arm of her chair. Besides, I'm bigger than him, right? Size isn't everything. It's something. And I'm angry enough that it'll compensate for whatever else I'm lacking. Bish. Ava looked up at him. You're really okay with this? With me being here, disrupting your life? You're not disrupting anything. You're adding to it. He brushed hair back from her face. And yeah, I'm okay with it. More than okay. Even though it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated. Easy things don't matter as much. She pulled him down to kiss her, and for a moment everything else faded. Daniel, the private investigator, the fear of what came next. There was just this, just them. Just the fragile hope that they could build something strong enough to weather whatever storm was coming. When they finally pulled apart, Ava rested her head against his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. Never going to happen. You can't promise that. Yes, I can, because I'm stupidly stubborn and I don't know how to quit. She laughed softly. That's not reassuring. It's honest. They sat like that until the house grew cold and sleep became unavoidable. Ethan showed Ava to the guest room, which was mostly storage but had a bed Ellen had insisted he keep for emergencies. If you need anything, I'm right down the hall, he said. I know. She stood in the doorway, looking smaller than usual. Ethan? Yeah? I meant what I said, about falling in love with you. I know that too. He kissed her forehead. Get some sleep. But sleep didn't come easily. Ethan lay in his bed listening to the house settle, running through scenarios. If Daniel showed up, what would he do? Call the police immediately? Confront him first? Keep Lily inside and handle it alone? There were no good answers, just choices with different consequences. His phone lit up with a text. Ava. Ava, can't sleep. Ethan, me neither. Ava, thank you for letting me stay. Ethan, stop thanking me. Ava, make me. He smiled despite everything. Ethan, get some rest. Tomorrow's another day of dealing with this. Ava, optimist. Ethan, realist. We're going to be fine. He didn't know if he believed it, but he needed to say it anyway, needed to speak it into existence like a prayer to a universe that might be listening. Outside, wind moved through the trees, and somewhere in the darkness, Daniel Mercer was planning his next move. But here, in this house, they were safe. For now, that had to be enough. Daniel showed up on a Wednesday. Ethan was in the workshop when the gravel crunched under unfamiliar tires. Through the window, he watched a sleek silver sedan pull into the driveway. Rental plates, Boston Business Casual behind the wheel. He knew before the man even stepped out. Ava was inside with Lily, helping with homework. Ethan walked out to meet Daniel halfway across the yard, positioning himself between the house and this man who'd traveled 2,000 miles to prove a point. Daniel was exactly what Ethan expected. Polished, confident, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mid-30s, expensive haircut. Watch that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. Ethan Cross? Daniel extended his hand like this was a business meeting. Ethan didn't take it. You need to leave. I just want to talk to Ava. 5 minutes. Daniel lowered his hand, unfazed. I know she's here. Her car's in the driveway. She doesn't want to talk to you. She's made that clear. Has she? Or have you convinced her she doesn't? Daniel's smile sharpened. Look, I get it. New relationship, you want to be the hero, but you don't know her like I do. Ava runs when things get hard. She's probably already planning her exit from whatever this is. You're wrong. Am I? Did she tell you about the engagement ring I bought? Custom design, 3 months salary. She wore it for 2 weeks before deciding it didn't feel right. Daniel made air quotes. That's who you're dealing with. Someone who doesn't know what she wants. The front door opened. Ava stepped onto the porch, and Ethan saw her face go white. Daniel. Her voice was steadier than Ethan expected. You need to go. Ava, please, just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Daniel moved forward, and Ethan stepped into his path. She said no. This is between me and her. Not anymore. Ethan kept his voice level. You drove across the country because you can't accept that she left you. You hired a private investigator to track her down. You called my phone, her phone, tried every manipulation in the book, and she still doesn't want you. So you're going to get in your rental car and drive away, or I'm calling the police. Daniel's expression hardened. You think you know her? You've known her what, a month? I was with her for 4 years. I know every part of her, the part she doesn't show people like you. Then you should know she's stronger than you ever gave her credit for. Ava walked down the porch steps, stopping beside Ethan. I'm not the person you tried to make me. I never was. And I'm not coming back. Ava, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I left because you made me smaller. Because every day with you felt like drowning. Her voice shook but held. I loved you once. Or I thought I did. But what we had wasn't love. It was control dressed up as caring. That's not fair. Neither is showing up here uninvited. Neither is hiring someone to find me when I made it clear I didn't want to be found. Ava took a breath. I'm done, Daniel. Completely done. And if you ever contact me again, I will file for a restraining order and make sure every person in your professional network knows exactly why. Daniel's face flushed. You wouldn't. Try me. They stared at each other, and Ethan saw the moment Daniel realized he'd lost. The calculation in his eyes, weighing whether pushing further was worth the potential fallout. Apparently it wasn't. Fine. Daniel straightened his jacket. But when this falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. I won't, Ava said simply. Daniel looked at Ethan one last time, something ugly in his expression, then walked back to his car. The engine started, gravel crunched, and he was gone. Ava stood frozen until the taillights disappeared. Then she turned and buried her face in Ethan's shoulder, her whole body shaking. You did it, Ethan murmured into her hair. You actually did it. I thought I'd be terrified, but mostly I just feel tired. That's allowed. They stood in the driveway until Lily appeared at the window, waving. Ava pulled back, wiping her eyes. She can't know about this. Not yet. Agreed. Ethan kissed her forehead. Come on, let's go inside. Lily accepted their explanation that a lost driver had stopped for directions. She returned to her homework while Ethan made dinner with hands that wouldn't quite stop shaking. Ava sat at the table, quieter than usual, but present. That night, after Lily was asleep, they sat in the workshop. Ethan had pulled out the walnut he'd been saving, and Ava watched him sketch designs for the bench. Do you think he'll actually leave me alone? She asked. Yeah, men like Daniel are all about control. Once he realizes he doesn't have any, he'll move on. You sound sure. I am sure. Because you took his power away today. You stood up to him, and he had nothing. Ethan looked up from his sketch. That's not something you can come back from. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. I was just backup. He set down his pencil. You've been strong this whole time, Ava. You just needed to remember it. She moved to sit beside him, examining the sketch. What is this? A bench. For you. Something permanent. Permanent? Yeah. He met her eyes. Because you're staying, not just in Colorado Springs, here, with us. Ethan, I know it's fast. I know we're supposed to be taking things slow, but I'm tired of pretending this is casual. I love you. Lily loves you, and I want you here. Officially. Ava's eyes filled. You love me? Yeah, I do. Been trying to figure out how to say it, and apparently now is the time. He took her hand. So, what do you say? You want to stop living out of a duffel bag and actually move in? What about Lily? Shouldn't we ask her? Already did. Yesterday. She said, and I quote, obviously Ava should live here. Where else would she go? Ava laughed through tears. She said that? She's practical. Gets it from me. You're sure? This is what you want? I've never been more sure of anything. Ethan pulled her closer. You're part of this family now. Might as well make it official. She kissed him then, deep and certain, and Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in 7 years. Complete. Not just surviving, not just protecting what he had, but actually building something new. Something better. When they broke apart, Ava was smiling. Okay. Okay? I'll move in, on one condition. Name it. We get a dog. Lily wants one, and honestly, so do I. Ethan groaned. You're ganging up on me. Is it working? Unfortunately, yes. 3 months later, the bench sat on the front porch, walnut gleaming in the winter sun. Ava's belongings filled the guest room that had become her office. A rescue mutt named Carl, Lily's choice, sprawled across the living room floor, taking up far more space than his medium size should allow. Ethan stood in the doorway watching Lily teach Ava how to throw a frisbee for Carl, who had not yet mastered the concept of bringing it back. The yard was a mess of snow and dog prints and laughter, and it was perfect. Ellen appeared beside him, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. You look happy. I am happy. Good. You deserve it. She handed him a mug. Both of you do. Thanks, Mom. For what? For not saying I told you so when the blind date actually worked out. Oh, I'm absolutely saying I told you so, just giving you time to enjoy the victory first. Ellen smiled. She's good for you, for both of you. Yeah, she is. Ava looked back at the house, catching Ethan's eye and waving. He waved back, and she said something to Lily that made his daughter laugh and tackle her into a snowbank. Carl barked excitedly, joining the pile of limbs and snow. This was what it felt like to live instead of just survive, to choose courage over safety, messiness over control, to let someone in even when it scared you, because the alternative was spending the rest of your life wondering what you'd missed. Ethan had built a life around protection, protecting his daughter, protecting his heart, protecting the small piece of happiness he'd managed to salvage from the wreckage of his marriage. But protection alone wasn't living. It was just marking time until something forced you to change. Ava had been that something, a blind date he didn't want, a complication he tried to avoid, a risk he couldn't quite justify, but took anyway. And in taking that risk, he'd found what he'd been missing, not perfection, but partnership. Not easy, but real. The past wasn't erasable. Ava still had bad days when shadows of Daniel's control crept in. Ethan still caught himself building walls when vulnerability felt too dangerous. But they worked through it, together, because that's what you did when you actually loved someone. You showed up, you stayed. You chose each other every day, even when it was hard, maybe especially when it was hard. Dad. Lily called from the yard. Come play! Carl finally brought the frisbee back and we need to celebrate. Coming! Ethan set down his coffee and headed into the cold, into the chaos, into the beautiful mess of a life he never planned but wouldn't trade for anything. This was enough. More than enough. This was everything.